306 of 365 days of remembering. And of course I'm out in nature because that's the thing I love to do. And today is interesting, you know, because of everything that's going on in the world, we are really sitting in a perfect time for self-reflection, self-discovery, self-reset, sort of a rebirth. That's how I've been thinking about it lately. Like, what a perfect time to see that. And with Easter just having passed, if anyone knows anything about that, we could talk about that in reference to purification. So I really see this as a time of stillness, as a time of spring, where we're like thinking about renewing, we're thinking about letting the old go and bringing in the new, the birth of something new. So in that means, and then as a spiritually conscious being, which is how I view myself and how I operate on this path and why I share these videos for all of you other spiritually conscious beings, I am in this space of really attuning to myself, my self-expression, what it's going to take me back to the truth of who I really am, which is a being of love and light. And all of those things are so great and so wonderful to say as esoteric constructs, concepts, conclusions. But what if it's just like, I've been thinking about how it's like we're doing a giant puzzle. Imagine it's like this giant light puzzle, like it's beautiful and maybe it's shimmery colors and all the pieces fit together perfectly, and each piece on its own is this beautiful, it's almost hard to tell that it's a puzzle piece, but somehow intricately it connects with other pieces and other pieces and other pieces, and everyone has threads that connect all together with each other in this flowing kind of way that is just beautiful beyond sort of how we would view things, because it's not even three-dimensional, it's like multi-dimensional. I've heard quantum physicists talk about 8D things, and we can't really reference an 8D thing because we're in the 3D. And one of the ways they do it is they use a shadow projection. I think it's a tetrahedron, but it might be something completely different than that. And it's the projection of the shadow of it that allows us to get any kind of concept. So it's like, imagine a multifaceted diamond. We're each a diamond, but as part of our diamondness, we intricately connect through other diamonds, and then there's a thread of some kind of silvery light fiber that connects every diamond everywhere together. So I feel like this is a time for me to really polish up my diamond, to really be conscious about what is my truth, why am I here, what the heck am I doing, and what is this opportunity calling to me? What is it calling me to? And how can I best line up with it? And of course, this isn't just about me, because we're all in this together. So what is it calling you to? And I don't know about you, but I've had a feeling my whole life that I'm here for a reason, that there's something that I've come to do, something that I've come to share, some reason that beyond just my physicality, I manifested myself into a body, this soul, to be here at this time to activate this thing that I'm not really sure what it is. And I feel myself pulled in a lot of different directions in terms of the discovery process of that, as if I am being run through. It's like a ringer of sorts, in the sense that it's squeezing whatever needs to be squeezed out of me, but it doesn't feel that way. I mean, I think the collective right now is holding so much energy already of like transformation, but also of fear and contraction and expansion and contraction and expansion. And the interesting thing is this like clear divineness about all of us that is driven to expand. I mean, there is something threaded through every one of us as beings, as souls that came here for expansion. They came here for creation. They came here to remember. And so that energy is still activated. It's still being pulled. And I think because so many spiritual beings like myself and like you are being called to that activation more and more and more, that it's amplifying it, so that those that maybe don't have their feet on a spiritual path are feeling that pull, that yearning, that knowing somewhere hidden deep within themselves that they're more than they think they are. They're feeling it stronger, as if every one of us aligning with our true self, knowing fully who we are, dancing with our inner being, is in essence amplifying the song of our soul, the song between my inner being and me. And every one of us makes our own unique, beautiful, amazing song with our inner being. And now we're singing it in unison, and so many of us singing it simultaneously during this time of reset, during this time of awakening, during this time of rebirth and transformation. It's making it the song of source that much louder. That's beautiful. The song of source is that much louder. And guess what? As each of us tunes in to our inner being, entangles in that union, in that alignment, in that making love to your full self in the fullest way you possibly could-ness, it's then activating that song for so many others, and they're feeling it, they're hearing it. And they may not hear it as a song, they may not understand that it's their soul, they may not know even what it means to be spiritual or to be in alignment with themselves, but they feel this yearning, this kind of pull within themselves to know what sits behind what they think they are, what sits beneath everything. Like, what is their purpose? What is the meaning? And if nothing else, why is what's happening in the world happening? And of course we could just say, oh, well, I mean, some of them might just say, it's just fate, we have no control over anything, or, you know, there's all kinds of stories. But for those of us that are on a spiritual path, we know that it is part of the up-leveling that's happening. So anyway, in this process, I am finding myself pulled into more and more inquiry with myself, more and more self-investigation into me. And again, it's like, I know that I'm a being of love and light, but what does that mean to know that? And to know it in my head, to know it like of the mind, and then to have it run through the filter of the mind, that's one thing. To know it viscerally, to know it like fully in my body, that's another thing. But then to embody it, like, I don't mean to know it just in your body, I mean to like embody it, to be able to walk it, talk it, live it, breathe it, to have like source breathe me, instead of me choosing my own action, or me feeling like I gotta bang everything into place. What does it look like when I surrender and I just allow that flow to come to me? And that's what we're all being called to. And so what we're being called to is to get out of our own way. And some of the getting out of our own way is to know who we are so that we can embody that. So what's preventing the full-on embodiment for so many of us? Those are the things that we're being called to look at. And so I think some of it comes from all different places. It comes from all different experiences we've had. It comes from like the truth of our beliefs. Again, it's one thing to say from an esoteric place, I know I'm a being of love and light. I know I'm infinite. I know I have this inner being that is connected to source and all that is. It is backed by the power that creates worlds. I know that I am a creator, that everything I see in front of me is the reflection of the vibration that I'm emanating, and it's coming back to me, and that is the power of my creation, and it's unlimited. Every potential possibility exists before me. So I can say all that, but do I actually live it? Is that the energy that actually breathes through me, or is it mirrored and filtered through all of my beliefs, through lack, through past experiences, through fear, through doubt, through all of those things? And what is it going to take to let that go? So the place that I have been playing with it is just this idea of rebirth and this idea of reset. And what's really interesting is I'm in a course that has asked me to do a little bit of a reflection with myself around my childhood. And I don't really spend a lot of time doing that for no other reason than it seems like it's a place that we could easily get off track. But at the same time, I loved this invitation, which was, what do I, when I lean into and remember being a child, what was the things that I was most easily drawn to? What did I find to be the thing that lit me up the most, that was the most fun, that brought me the most joy, that I would do without being told to do, that I just, when I had any kind of free time, which is a lot of time when you're a child. And so what's interesting is in my meditation today, I tuned into that, and here is what's fun about it. I went back to sort of, instead of being like, what was it like to be a child, I found myself wanting to meet me, the child, because everything exists in the now. There is no separation. So that me, the child me, along with all the other thousands of me's that have existed through my own expansion over the last 50 years, or 49 actually, is accessible and available right here for me. So I tuned into the tiny Trina, let's just call her that. And what was so interesting is I watched her navigate her world. And initially it was like, so she's a kid, like, okay. And it was hard to sort of see what she was doing. And that's because I think as adults, we want to find the thing that we're doing. And what I ended up discovering is she loved to play. She loved to just play, and she loved to play outside. That was one of her favorite things, to play outside, to be connected to nature, to roll around in the grass, to play in the dirt, to be near trees, and often a lot of times on her own, which as she grew up, more and more times would involve more and more people. But ultimately there was just this connection, this pure connection with the earth, and this pure connection with what I would call is a creative energy. Like, She loved to build forts. She loved to play, you know, like, see this little creek? She would love to kind of build something and walk across it, or play just in the moving energy of the water, and wouldn't even think about it. So that was really cool. And then I decided, since I'm talking about her as if she's outside of me, I then decided to, because that's how it came to me. I was just in awareness watching this. And then I decided to, like, totally drop in to her, like totally just go back into being her, and to feel like, what does that feel like? What is the feeling that's there? And the feeling that came just full on rushing in is so hard to explain, but I'm going to do the best I can with the words I have. So it felt like this warm embrace. It felt like being held in the most purest, pristinest, unconditional love, like just like bathed, infused. But what was so interesting about it is it was just the way it was. Like, it wasn't like, oh, look, I'm having this feeling. Like, that's not the way that me would have described it, because there was no other way to be. That's just the way that it was. So, whereas as this adult me, I could say, oh, it felt so good because I was being cocooned and cuddled and just had this warmth and this knowingness of my own inner worth, my own security, my own safety that didn't, you'd think it was from my parents, but it didn't come from my parents. It was just sitting there. But she wouldn't have had those words to say that at whatever age she was, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Those words wouldn't have been available to her. Plus, that was just the way it always was. And it's interesting because even in moments that seemed to have an emotion that arose, that might have even, like, say she fell down and skinned her knee, the feeling was still there. It just didn't, yeah, it was like I was in this experience where I, like, fell off my bike, my knee was bleeding, I ran over to find my mom, and then before you know it, I just was right back on my bike again. And I don't know, I'm sure part of it is because I was looking in the past, and it, you know, it's like a dream state. It just kind of goes faster than it was. But I just know that there was this feeling that permeated everything. That was the highest, most profound thing in that moment, was this pure feeling of just well-being. This pure feeling of just this total knowingness, this total security. And it was the coolest thing ever. I mean, it was the coolest thing ever. And I think that so much of what I want from where I stand is, I want that feeling. I know what that feeling is. I know how to get the feeling, but it still feels like something I am getting, not something that I have, not something that lives and breathes in me. It's there, and it's there. There is an edge of it that's there all the time, but it's different. It's just so hard to explain. It's like, how does the fish that's in the water explain being in the water, because it doesn't know anything different than the water? Well, that's what it was like for the tiny Trina me. It was just like there was nothing to explain, because it just was it. It was the fabric of her whole experience. It was the fabric of her whole life. And as I moved ahead, I mean, also, just as an add-on, I had an amazing childhood in the sense that I had access to, and I think we all do, but I remember walking on walks with Jesus, talking with Jesus. I mean, I was raised Christian, and that just, to me, until it wasn't, it just seemed normal until I told other people about it. But also angels and fairies and just other dimensional beings, those were my friends, and nature divas, I mean, whatever you want to call them. I don't really know, because it just felt so normal to me that was where it was, and that was what was exciting. And the same as this resting place that was just me, that was just there, that felt so stable and so steady. And as I started to get older and my life opened, which is interesting, because from a growth perspective, when you think about the growth of the person or the growth of the mind, it would seem to make sense that the more opening we have in our life, the more opportunities, the more experiences, the more people we do, the more places we see, the more things we learn. That's really key for our expansion, like as a person, to have more knowledge. But what I actually noticed, and I don't know if this is true, but the noticing I had when I did this little meditation was that the more openness that appeared in my life, the more things that appeared, the more people that appeared, the more conversations that happened, that's when it started to rocket. That's when the wobble started to come, and when somewhere it's like my focus went from that. It wasn't even a focus. Like, I can't even say that my focus went from one place to another. It wasn't even a focus. It was just like being in grace, and then there was this falling into grace. Not because I did anything, and it wasn't like bang and it happened. It was more like an incremental process. And then where I started to where it seemed like there was sort of, maybe it was like an in the moment, like I was just in the moment and then I wasn't. And so I don't know, but then I felt like times where I just felt not seen and not heard and where there was just a lot of people had more opinions about me, and I hadn't noticed that before, and then all of a sudden I did. And then also things like noticing if my mom was upset, or noticing if other people had feelings, and thinking that I should be different because of all of that. And so it was really interesting. And I think the age seems around 9 or 10, 11. I loved swinging on a swing. I mean, swinging as high as I could on a swing, it just amped and amped and amped that feeling. And so I have a slight memory that at some point it's like it was shifting, and I don't know that I had a full awareness, but maybe a little bit. And in the shifting process, I was swinging more as if I was trying to catch the essence of it before it evaporated, which is so silly. I don't know, but that's the feeling that I have. And I know, if you know Bentino Massaro, he has talked about when he was 10 years old, and sort of that feeling of invincibility, that feeling of potentiality, of anything's possible. And then fast forward to when he was 14, and recognizing something had shifted, and being able to do that parallel examination with himself. And I can now do that. Hell, I wish at 14 I would have been able to do it. I didn't. And it just, I think that's what happens, is it's sort of like we fall into the forgetting. But what was so cool about this, and why I appreciate it so much, is it really helped me to see my truth in who I really am in a visceral kind of way. Like that feeling, oh my gosh, that is the feeling of pure alignment. That is the feeling of union. That's the feeling of like knowing what it's like to just ride through life backed by this magic. Like, it's like those would be the words that a child might say, like to feel that invincibility. And then clearly we do everything we can to get rid of it. I mean, even as parents, and I have 4 kids of my own, we tend to want to shake the invincibility out of them, because what do they say? Oh, teenagers, they think they're invincible, and so they take risks and do dumb things. But would it be a risk if you knew you were backed by source? Would it be a risk if you knew 100% that the universe had you, that everything that you possibly did was supported, that angels would catch you, and that it wasn't not making choices, it wasn't playing small, it wasn't your parents, it wasn't your friends, it wasn't your society? None of that is what's going to keep you safe. It's your own knowing of your own wings, of your own magic, that's going to keep you flying. And somehow I think most of us just lose that. And so that was really a key thing for me in this experience. And then the recognition that, wow, it was powerful, and I had it in spades. Like I really did. I came into that grace, which we probably all did, but I seemed to sustain it for quite some time, and then have pockets of it throughout my life. And I had like a pretty good childhood. It was interesting also, though, to then just for a moment have vignettes pop through my mind of times where like my experience is interpreted through my mother's vehicle, through her perspective and her channel, and how often it is in my life I now have this realization that I didn't have before I had this little meditation, that so many times you have an experience, it's pure and clean, and you have it, and it almost passes through you, but then other people have a perspective of your experience that's different than you. And I had this, like as a child, you know, I was smaller than everybody else, and I used to get picked on for that, and it almost didn't really faze me, but it was quite upsetting to my mother. Like there's a lot of them, to the point that when I was 39 years old, my husband, the father of my 4 kids, was killed in a tragic accident, and in it is different than looking at it. And I think there was lots of people that had lots of things to say, including my immediate family, about the looking at it and how hard that was for them, or their expectations of how I feel. And it's just been sort of, I would say in the last 2 years, I've been noticing people say, oh, you're so upset about that, or oh, you're so mad about that, or you're so something. And it doesn't fit for me. Like they fill in the blanks of things that don't resonate for me, and being able to say, no, that's not my experience. That's not what's going on for me. And to be able to be like, okay with taking ownership of that. So this was really helpful in that sense too. And so what did this do for me? This is just a tiny piece of the other place I was going to go to. Is we're all a puzzle piece in the up-leveling, but also within ourselves is a myriad of puzzle pieces represented potentially in experiences in some aspect of ourselves that awaken. Like, it could be a book, it could be a teacher, it could be an experience, it could be information, it could just be an aha within yourself, which is kind of like what this was. All of those puzzle pieces together kind of forms our spiritual path. So we're like building the puzzle that we're walking on as we go. And so that's what I see this as. This is just, it's visceral, and it's hard to sort of explain exactly what it took me to, but we all know that we started out pure. We all know that we came from source. We all know that we're a magical, beautiful diamond, and there's a thread that flows within all of us that brings us together as one, and there's alchemy that's part of that. And we all know that if we could attune back to that purity of being a child and coming and playing in nature, letting the sound of the water soothe you and bring you back home, that's key. So I don't know, that was my little expression for the day. It seemed poignant, it seems powerful, at least for me, and I invite you to begin the process of kind of purifying yourself, bringing yourself out, whatever you want to call it, whatever you feel is standing in the way between you and your highest reset, your highest potential rebirth in this time that we've been given this opportunity. Like, literally the deck is stacked in your favor for whatever it is that you want to clean yourself up, for whatever it is that you want to be. And I'm looking at it, just to bring it all back, I'm looking at this as like a clean reset. Like, everything that's ever happened before doesn't even matter. And so it could be possible that because I have that intention, everything that I found when I did that meditation is in perfectly in alignment with that discovery. And what's so funny is about the past, everything's now. And so was it that my experience? Did that happen to Tiny Trina? Was that her interpretation? Who knows? But it served me on this particular red hot moment on my path to have that as a reference point, as a starting point, as a basis point. So I invite you to do some exploration with yourself. Like, use your meditations to ask the higher aspects of yourself, your soul council, whatever you want to call it. Like, where can I best be expanding? Where can I best be, it looks like I'm saying contracting, but I more mean where can I best be, like, emptying and letting stuff out. And, you know, it's kind of like the end of a toothpaste. How do you squeeze the last little bit of all that stuff out? The identification, the attachment, the things that are blocking you, so that you can fly free and be an open channel for God, for love, for source, because that's what we're all being called to, and that's what's really going to amplify this game. The more of us that can sing our soul song purely in union, and then activate all the others that are already singing it, and then activate it in the way that the others know they even have a song, that's what's going to change everything. That's going to change the world. That's the creation of the new world. So I will leave you with that and talk to you again soon.